Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. Tour de Fleece 2023 begins today, and I am excited. I think I have all the cameras. I have a side camera set up, and I think I'm ready to start this adventure. Needless to say, I've been a little bit nervous because I'm trying something a little different than what I've done in Tour de Fleece in the past. This year I'm doing a daily vlog, and I'm going to try to cover a topic that relates to spinning while I spin. And I was nervous because I am planning to just every day pick a topic out of my basket back there and then prepare some stuff to go with it and then spin. And I was a little nervous about what the first topic would be today. And I guess fate is in my favor because the topic is teaching others to spin. And I think there can't be a much better topic to start this new adventure with than teaching others to spin. So, my little bag does have my little treats for today. A caramel. Let's see. I've got a watermelon taffy, and it looks like maple chocolate, or I know, not chocolate, not maple, chocolate toffee, and some caramel. So I will be enjoying those once I have the video recorded. It's my treat to myself as I edit these videos and upload them, a little bit of a treat to help get through the editing process. But let's go ahead and get started in. I should cover what fiber I'm going to start. If you've been following along with my previous videos, I talk about the different fibers I'm going to spin. I decided today to go ahead and start on what's going to end up being my polka dot, red polka dots on white background yarn. Trying to spin along with the theme of the jerseys that the cyclists wear. This is what I chose. So, all these things to get on trend. What I've done with this fiber, and I have the information. Where's the card? There is supposed to be a card with this. I wonder if it has fallen out. But, oh, there it is. I pulled it out with the fiber. This is Corriedale. This is 2 ounces of white Corriedale. I will be spinning them up into a single, and then I have some red silk that I'll spin up in a single. And I'm thinking it's going to be some type of maybe a coil, in essence, a little bit of an art fiber. So in dealing with the topic of today, it is interesting that I have this. Of course, I have some other fleece to show you, some other spinning fiber to show you. But when I first started spinning, the fiber I had on hand, because my daughter raised Angora rabbits, the fiber I had on hand was Angora rabbit fur. Combed off the back of the rabbit quite frequently. Almost every day we had to comb a rabbit because she had a number of rabbits. And I didn't know anything really a lot about spinning. Of course, you know, this was 15 years ago. I was looking online for information, and I knew that Angora was going to be tricky and probably not the best learning how to spin on. But I had a whole bunch of it because we'd had our rabbits for a year or so, and so I had a lot of it on hand. I also knew that there was going to be a wool market coming up in just a couple weeks, and I'd be able to get some additional spinning fiber at the wool market. So I sat down because I'm impatient, and I started to spin Angora from just a cloud of fluff, very much like this. All I've done with this Corriedale is I have flicked it apart, hand-picked it apart actually, and then just randomly put it into into its pile. Now I can spin this in a long draw. I can spin it in a short draw. And the truth is that other than the fact that I need to pull, I have too much in this bowl. My husband made me this bowl for me to hold the Angora because it does go everywhere. The Corriedale, on the other hand, I can just keep in my lap and it's not going to fly away in these conditions. But with the Angora, I needed something that is doesn't hold static and nice smooth surface, and so my husband made me this bowl. But when I was learning to spin it, as I said, I was just spinning from the fluff. And as with most spinners, there was some learning curve. But one of the things that I found interesting when I did manage to then talk to other spinners, get some different fibers, they kept saying, well, why are you keeping your hands so close together? Let your hands go further apart. The fiber that you're spinning has a longer staple length. And I was like, well, I'm keeping my hands close together because that's how I learned to spin with my Angora. So today when I spin, I kind of go back and forth. It's more, for me, it's more about my comfort. It's more about what the fiber wants to do. And it's more about just the enjoyment. However, when I am trying to teach someone else to spin, I want them to have a slightly better success rate than I did on my first spins. Now, I will let you know, I actually did manage to create some usable yarn in those first days and those first weeks. But it would have probably been just a tiny bit less frustrating or recreating the wheel kind of technique to have learned how to draft, to have learned how to spin using a prepared fiber. And so one of the first things that I suggest when you're teaching somebody to spin, and this is something that, I'm dropping fiber everywhere. This is something that I suggest in a lot of, when you're teaching somebody how to do a lot of the different skills out there. It's important for the new spinner, the new knitter, the new crocheter to feel like they're accomplishing something. We know that there is a lot of muscle memory that has to be developed. It is a physical task, and in all truth, it's going to take practice. Even if you have a natural ability to do it right off the bat, it takes practice to work to work up the muscle skill to do it and do it well. I'm going to move my wheel just a tiny bit this way. There we go. I like to lean, and I have a camera here to be able to show some of my spinning as I edit, that I'll edit in as I edit this video later. So I like to have the people I teach have a chance to feel some sense of satisfaction, some sense of accomplishment when they're first learning how. So if that means that I need to crochet a few rows of something so that a person has a little more to hold on to practice their work, then I'll do so. The same thing with knitting. I find that if I'm working with a very new beginner, by casting on for them and knitting up a couple rows, then they can practice the motor skill without sometimes the frustration that comes from the casting on in the beginning process. And this is something that I just feel really helps them get a good start. Now, of course, they need to learn how to cast on. They need to learn how to start from their own leader on the spinning wheel or on the drop spindle. They need to have all of the basics, but sometimes it's nice to give them a chance to work on the motor skills before having them learn all of the pieces. So with that also in mind, with that, I'm looking here. Okay, so yes, my topic notes that I have. With that in mind, one of the things over time that I discovered was a much easier way to help a new spinner get that first spinning wheel or drop spindle experience was in making sure that, unlike in my experience where I was working from raw fiber, pretty much groomed right off of a rabbit, it's nice to be able to give a new spinner a prepared fiber. And by prepared fiber, I don't just mean a beautiful braid of roving or top. What I mean by prepared fiber is sometimes using pencil roving. And let's see if I can, I don't even know where the end of this pencil roving is. I haven't, there it is. Pencil roving. It almost looks like a single itself, but it really doesn't have much twist in it. This is a wonderful way for you, with demonstrations especially, but a wonderful way for somebody to start practicing spinning without needing to hold on to loose fiber. So pencil roving, it's something I keep on hand for demonstrations, because it's really great for demonstrations. A person feels like they've spun some yarn because it's almost spun for them. But when I was working with my kids, I found it really helped if I gave them a bunch of roll logs, or kind of it's not a true roll log. It's more of what we sometimes call a faux log. I've rolled it off of the hand card with a dowel. But by using the roll log, they have a couple advantages. A small bit of fiber, easy to draft. It's been prepared for them so that it wants to spin woolen and it wants to grip together. But it's also a small bit, so they can take breaks between each roll log. And my roll logs are small because I use small hand cards. And so I like giving them that, because taking a break in between a successful spin, i.e. a roll log after roll log, taking a break, taking a breather, can really make a difference in how they feel about their progress. So when you are a beginning spinner, it really does help if you feel like, oh, look, I finished this roll log. Wow, okay, I have the energy to start another one. So it's an easy way to put a success feeling onto their process. And they can, the other thing that's really great about it is roll logs have a tendency to be similar. When you make your own roll logs, you tend to put a similar amount of fiber onto the carders, and you make the roll logs. They're all very similar. So when you're trying to divide up your fiber into, say, 2 piles so that you can make a 2-ply, and you don't have a scale to get exact weight, you can simply count out one in this basket and one goes in the other basket, and you can separate the roll logs into 2 piles very easily. So it does have also the advantage of helping a beginning spinner separate their fiber into equal piles so that they can somewhat come close to having similarly filled bobbins. Now, taking the time to prepare roll logs for a new spinner, that is an investment in time. It is an investment in effort. And it may be an investment in time that you may not, sorry about that, my kitty bumped the camera. An investment in time that may be a little bit too much. Or maybe you don't have the hand carders or the fiber that you want to turn into a roll log. Although something that I found, I asked somebody years ago, I said, is there any rule against hand carding into roll logs a beautiful combed top. Hand painted beautiful combed top. And the person said, they laughed and they said, it's your fiber. You can spin it however you want. There's no fiber police saying that you can't take that beautiful top or roving and turn it into rologs if you'd like. So if you have the time, it is a wonderful way to help a new spinner feel more accomplished, feel a little bit more in control of the fiber that they're spinning. If you don't have that much time, if you want to do something more quickly, or you want to have the student do it, they bring in their beautiful, top or roving, and they're like, I really want to spin this, and you want to make it a little bit easier, I suggest breaking it down into strips and then turning them into these little nests. So whether you call this pre-drafting or stripping, basically by tearing down, and I'm going to go ahead, I'll break this into smaller, by splitting the fiber into two parts and then into two parts until it's nice and thin. And what I did with this braid is I actually split it into half lengthwise. So I had two sections, two shorter sections, and then I started to split them into these smaller pieces and turn them into, turn them into little nests. The advantage to this is, as you can see, it's not quite pencil roving, but it is pretty close. So this way, a new spinner can start off with a pre-drafted fiber of their choice, if that's what they want to do, but still have a little more control. And just like with the rologs, they can spin a bundle, take a break, spin a bundle, take a break, and it can help them feel accomplished in their daily spinning. They don't necessarily have to worry about overdoing it. They feel a little bit more in control, but now they can start to play around with some fibers that they've picked. Now, speaking of fibers, most of us who spin will agree there are easier fibers than some fibers are easier to spin than others. A nice mid-grade wool has a lot of grippiness to it, some crimp. A medium length staple is good because it wants to grip together. It wants to cling together. It wants to, in essence, become yarn. It really does. So it is good to pick and choose your fibers that you're having a beginner spin with carefully. There's nothing saying that they can't start with silk or angora or, flax if that's really what they want to do. And for some, they need that challenge. They want the challenge of doing something that is a little trickier, but that's perfectly fine. But a good medium staple length and medium grade wool is a wonderful place to start if you're helping a new spinner along, if you're teaching somebody to spin. And yes, in the past, that's exactly what I've done. I've prepared fibers, and what I've done, if you have a friend and they're trying to learn how to spin, and you have like me, a stash of fiber that you're willing to share, there is so much joy to be had in preparing for them a variety of fibers and fiber preps so that they can get a feel for different spinning. And then they can work on their own. They can work through the fiber you've provided for them as a way to start feeling comfortable. And then they'll also start feeling hopefully comfortable in buying their own fibers, because you've given them a selection that helps them understand that there is different. With wool alone, there is differences. There's so many differences between the coarseness, the length, the animal that it comes from. There's just such a variety of differences, such a variety of wools, and it can make spinning more interesting than if they feel like they're just limited to what hand painted roving and top that they get at maybe a festival. Yes, we all gravitate to those beautiful beautiful braids of fiber, but it is also a lot of fun to try different things. And I think if you start somebody off right from the beginning with the knowledge that the variety really is the spice of life when it comes to spinning, that it can encourage them to find out what they like to spin rather than feel like they have to go with the flow or get stuck in a rut. Now, with that being said, I know there will be people who do not want to prepare their own fleece, but there are more and more mills processing processing the fiber from spinning flocks that are out there. There are more and more breeders who are having their fiber turned into rovings for people to purchase. So unlike even a decade ago, there's a lot of selection available in order for somebody to try out some different fibers, but without having to prepare them from a raw fleece themselves. Now, before I wrap up this video, I should mention what's on my notes here about plying, teaching a spinner to ply. So I've talked about how to get them through their first single, and unless they really just have an amazing knack right off the beginning, they're going to probably get some thick and thin singles to begin with. There might be some lumps and bumps in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it can turn out to be some really fun yarn if they don't get frustrated. And one of the ways that I found to help avoid that initial frustration is that rather than having a person sit down and try to spin 2 singles, I have them spin 1 single and then have them ply it with either a commercial thread or yarn, or, again, if you're being generous, a pre-spun single that you've spun yourself that you now have available for your friend that's learning how to spin. Because if you have a nice thin single that they can ply with their thick and thin first yarns, they'll get a really fabulous skein of yarn. It gives them a kind of a little bit of a boucle type feeling. Definitely not a true boucle in any means, but a fun yarn. And one of the things I suggest, if you're going to go with a commercial yarn, there are commercial cotton threads out there that are a little on the thicker side. They are designed for machine quilters, and even some of the hand quilters. But there are some thicker cotton yarns, so you can even go to the big box, fabric stores and find some of them. You just want to look for what is thicker, not thinner, than your standard sewing thread. And when you get 100% cotton quilting thread, machine quilting thread, and you ply it, oh my goodness, it does. It really can ply it with a fluffy single, it really can become quite a fun yarn. So that is one of the other tips that I will give. It's all about trying to have the spinner, the new spinner, feel comfortable and confident, feel validated that their efforts are worth it, and that they are real spinners, even if they're not doing a 2-ply all themselves. It's all about helping each other along. So the final thing that I will just note as I get ready to wrap up today's video, because I'd like to keep all of them within a certain time frame, be aware that not all of your rovings and tops that you commercially buy are the same. Some of them will be easier for a beginner to spin than others. It's not just about what sheep the wool may have come from. It can also be about what's blended in them. Any of us that have learned to spin silk or learned to spin silky fibers will know that it is a little bit different feel and technique that sometimes is necessary. Now, if you're doing what I'm doing with this stuff and you're just going inch by inch, it becomes a little bit easier, but it does add to it can add to the frustration, because a beginning spinner isn't going to know that the reason it's slipping through their fingers is because of a fiber that's blended in with it, rather than their own lack of skill. So, when working with the beginning spinners, to summarize, help them understand that not all braids of fiber are the same, not all wool is the same, and that they don't need to focus on having what looks like commercial yarn right from the beginning. The most important part is learning how to get your hands working with the wool, or whatever. If they're allergic to wool, there are other fibers out there that will work nearly as easily as the wool. And I'll be talking about those in later discussions, but there are options. But try to help the spinner, the new spinner, feel like they are accomplished. Because the truth is, anyone who can sit down and spin, whether it's on a drop spindle or a spinning wheel, anyone who can sit down and spin for 15 minutes and make something that resembles yarn that is held together by twist, they are accomplished. And we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate the little accomplishments, because the big accomplishments only come from little bits and pieces combined together over time. So I hope this has been informative. I hope this works as a first day of Tour de Fleece 2023. I will sit down and spin some more of this up, probably off camera. Who knows what I will bring to spin to you tomorrow? Maybe I'll be spinning some more of this. We will just have to wait and see. Until then, though, happy spinning, and we'll see you tomorrow.